Coming at you from the decentralized earth, you're listening to
Christo on Crypto.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Christo on Crypto. Today our two sponsors are Reset and Retreat and BitXme Exchange. Have you ever felt that sometimes life is too fast? You're always on your devices, especially in crypto. Well, if you're interested in switching off, reconnecting with the environment and with others, then Reset and Retreat is the place for you. Very excited to announce that a crypto-only retreat is being launched by Reset and Retreat, who have been established in the retreat and wellness space for over 2 years now. And listeners of Christo on Crypto will be getting an exclusive special offer, which they can redeem at one of Reset and Retreat's summer events. So look out for more information on that in the coming few weeks, and I highly recommend it. I went on a retreat last year, and it is difficult at first. It involves 7 days of no connectivity whatsoever, so that includes mobile phones, the internet, pages, who uses them, but you get the idea. It's complete disconnection, concentrating on healthy meals, relationships with the environment, so lots of yoga, meditation, interestingly enough also some very unique activities like stand-up comedy. On the retreat we learned to do a 5-minute comedy set and then perform it, and the feeling you get from strangers laughing at you is very, very powerful. It beats any likes or any retweets that you can get on crypto Twitter or any of the social medias for that matter. So do check it out, and more details in the coming weeks for that special crypto retreat. And the second sponsor on today's podcast is BitXme Exchange, based out of Singapore. They're launching a crypto-to-crypto exchange, soon to have fiat on-ramps. And I've tested it out, and it's very good, I must say. It allows for highly customized user experience, and order execution is quick, and the liquidity is very good. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they progress into the future. For listeners of Christo on Crypto, there's a special link that includes a extra discount on top of the already quite generous structure that they have, given that they're launching on the 1st of June. So do check it out, bitxme.com, and as always, links are in the description. And happy trading, and stay safe.
Christo on Crypto.
On this episode of the podcast, we're joined by Nerayoff of Casper Labs and Simon Harman of Loki. A friend of mine recently introduced me to them in Hong Kong, and if you're not familiar, it's the place to be for blockchain in Asia. Seriously, there's a lot of stuff happening. There are incubators all over the place. A lot of crypto companies have their headquarters there, and of course, being technically part of China, yet an autonomous region, it's almost as if Hong Kong has all of this bustling energy around crypto and blockchain because of the whimsical nature of the Chinese government and their sort of yes and no nature towards the blockchain and crypto space. If you ever get a chance, I would urge you to go down there and see what they have on offer. There's lots of meetups all over the place, and very strong communities, particularly the Ethereum community out there is very strong, and so is the Cardano community. I was very impressed with the events that they held out there, and there's a lot of smart minds there. So that's my promo bit for Hong Kong. If you're there, make sure you get involved with some cool blockchain stuff. So we talked to Nerayoff first, who claims to have 20 patents under his name and was one of the legal minds responsible for the Ethereum token sale. He's working with Vlad Zamifir on Casper Labs, and we caught up with him to see how that project's coming along. We also talked a little bit about scaling and all of the solutions around it and why it's so difficult. We also talk about why bear markets are a very, very good thing for innovation. So enjoy the episode, and please don't forget to give us a like, maybe even leave us a review on whichever app you're using. We're also parallel streaming all episodes on our newly launched YouTube channel, so if you'd give us some support there, we'd really appreciate it. We're also on Twitter at Christo on Crypto, so give us a shout there if you're active on the CTs. And thank you so much for all of your support. It really means a lot to us, and it allows us to bring some very, very special guests onto the Christo on Crypto podcast series. Enjoy the episode. Thank you for being here, Stephen.
Thank you. Great to have you here.
So tell me a little bit about your involvement in crypto. Where does it begin?
So I came in around 2011 and was captured by Bitcoin, fell down the rabbit hole like many other people.
Yeah.
And then around 2014, early 2014, got involved in Ethereum. And my job there was to figure out how to do a crowd sale in a legally compliant manner. Mm-hmm. And so the model that I came up with there ended up becoming the model that a lot of folks used for ICOs in the future.
Yeah. Awesome. Brilliant. So tell us a little bit about Casper Labs and what makes it different.
And so Casper Labs is a really fascinating project. So I haven't been this excited in years. It's a creation that came out of research by Vlad Zamfir. Mm-hmm. And it's a family of protocols that at the end of the day, what it leaves you with is really the very first truly decentralized and scalable blockchain. So the holy grail that many of us have been elusively seeking all these years in blockchain are the three pillars of a blockchain. That's security, scalability, and decentralization. Until now, you've had many blockchains that have been secure. Mm-hmm. You've had some that have been secure and decentralized, like Bitcoin and Ethereum, but both of those, due to their current nature and structure and the proof of work, are not very scalable. Then you have other ones that are scalable and arguably maybe secure to some level, but they're done that through adding some form of centralization.
Of course.
Literally, I believe it is every single blockchain that has found a way to scale has done that through sacrificing decentralization with a centralization component. What Vlad Zamfir has figured out, and that's why so many of us have basically dropped what we're doing and are focusing full time on Casper Labs, is he has said we don't need to sacrifice anything. We can have all three of these. So this is really the holy grail of blockchains, and I believe that what's kind of unique about it is there are inventions in this world, and then there are people who invent, not just commercially, but literally invent a way to scale the invention. Mm-hmm. And so if you look out over history, you'll find like the automobile, you have Mercedes, you had Benz, and Benz invented the automobile. However, Henry Ford invented the assembly line. The assembly line was used to scale the automobile. You had Friendster. Friendster invented social media. It collapsed specifically because it could not scale. Zuckerberg comes in and found a way to scale social media. You had Yahoo, which pioneered search, but it was a manual process. Google came in and said, no, well, there's another way. Let's invent a way to scale search, and with their algorithms. So in each case, the inventor of the scalability, which is what Vlad has done in this case, is the one that actually allowed the technology to literally proliferate in each of those three cases to billions of people around the world. And so I think the same exact thing is happening here. And so when we saw this technology, we were saying, wow, this is exactly what blockchain means. And blockchain, in my opinion, has been very much held back. Its growth, killer apps have all been held back because there hasn't been both fully decentralized and scalable blockchain.
But do you not think that to be fully decentralized is just a matter of time, as opposed to, at the moment where we have aspects of centralization that are required for scalability, but once blockchains become much more efficient, maybe they become smaller, maybe the models change into proof of stake from proof of work, then we might be able to achieve scalability without so much centralization. But why invent the wheel again, so to speak?
No, because that hasn't happened. These ones that have instituted a centralization component in order to scale, the centralization component is not leaving. I mean, that's what allows it. It's built into its core. It's part of the architecture of that particular blockchain. What you need to do is you need to create a whole new blockchain. There's two issues with that. You lose your current blockchain, your community, everything that's on there. So that's definitely a challenge. The second one is what Vlad has created in CBC Casper, frankly, is the only protocol. It's actually a family of set of protocols that has achieved that. So what you're saying, I could be correct if other people invented other ways to do it. So far, this is the only mention that I've seen.
Okay, interesting. And from what I understand, Casper Labs has been launched relatively recently, certainly in the depths of the bear market. So I understand that you were around during the significant periods of growth for Google in the early 2000s. Is there something about the bear market that makes companies innovate better?
Oh my God, absolutely. So I was in Silicon Valley in the internet business in 2000 when the crash happened, and I stayed for a number of years after that. And what you saw was multiple companies getting hundreds of billions to $1 trillion in market value and creating massive ecosystems. So you saw Google, you saw Facebook, arguably actually you saw Apple rebirth with the iPhone in there. And what the bear market does is, number one, the visitors have gone home.
Right.
So the folks that were not really here and had a passion for the technology, and frankly, when you're breaking new paradigm and new thing, you better have a passion for this because it's not easy. It's 18, 20 hours days, it's thankless, the entire world's telling you you can't do it, and so you need to have that belief and passion. Second thing is that people aren't as focused. Right, so people are focusing more on back then it was the stock market, this time it was coin market cap. They were trading all day long as opposed to actually focusing on what they were doing. This is very real. The percent, they did studies about it in 2000 about how many people were day trading, and it was like astronomical in Silicon Valley how many people were doing that. Of course, afterwards they weren't. The talent level, and this is like the most important, right, is that the talent that you can get during a bear market is exponentially, and that's a quantitative higher, but it's also qualitatively higher. There literally is talent that you could not have gotten during the boom. And during
is
the
that
bust,
because everyone's expectations of salary and stuff have come down?
Absolutely.
No longer do they get 10% of stake tokens or something like that.
Correct. And so there are, I remember in 2001, we had multiple Stanford PhDs as unpaid interns. I mean, that's just even, out of computer science. It's like literally, and physics is unheard of, right? These are people that would make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. They just wanted, because we had a really interesting business and they were interested in working there, but in a boom time, you would have just never had them, right? We wouldn't have had access to those people. So the same thing right now with Casper is that we're a great example of this. I've been in, I don't know, literally involved in dozens of technology companies, both my own and as a venture capitalist. And I have never seen pound for pound, we're not huge, but pound for pound, a level of really core competency that our developers have. It just starts with Vlad, obviously. We've met Meta Paliker, which is she's amazing. She's the CEO of Casper Labs. She's the PM, and they love working with her, and she's just great at strategy and design architecture. And then our lead dev is Michael Birch, and I literally have not seen anybody any better than him. And there's only been a few that are even in his league in the entire space. So all of that, really, from a developer standpoint, we wouldn't have been able to capture that, and that's why the bear market's been really helpful. Yeah, on the business side, also a group of us have dropped much of what we're doing, and we're focused on this. A year ago we were focused on a dozen other projects. Frankly, there aren't a dozen other,
competent projects.
Yeah, well, tier one, the kind of projects that you could really say, this is going to make a difference in the world. It's like if you're not looking to make a difference in the world, why are you in this space, right? It's like it's tough, it's challenging. You're questioning yourself all day long, but you kind of go back and say, all right, I'm hoping that this is actually going to change the planet. So by the time I leave this planet, I can look back and say something I did change the planet. Because if you just want to make money, there's a lot of easier places. This is not the easiest place to make money.
Sure.
And but that's what gets you up in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I get the idea of creating an entire new blockchain because you want to replace some of the centralization that might be, say, built in to Ethereum or EOS or whatever for that matter. But what happens in 5 years' time when someone says, or if they say, oh, Casper Labs has still got too much centralization, or any other criticism that comes with simply the technology of the time not being able to keep up with the pace of innovation?
So that's a really good question. So number one, the parent company of Casper Labs is called Adaptive Holdings. I'm the chairman of the parent company. Casper Labs is a wholly owned subsidiary. And I bring that up because adaptive is the first four letters, or adaptive is ADAP, and that stands for as decentralized as possible. Okay. And we put that in there intentionally, and so on all of our business cards and our materials that we look at ourselves and that we give to other people to remind us what our mission is here. Right. It's that we're not scaling at the sacrifice of decentralization. That centralization is a key component, and it's a key ethos of why we're all in this space. So the tech is designed very modularly, is designed with upgrade cycles in mind in terms of how to improve it over time, and the architecture is designed extremely thoughtfully, so allows it to move up and expand. But in terms of its ability to get larger and serve billions of people, I believe this technology actually can do that. And it's really important to understand why is decentralization so important? Like, what do we care? All right, so these other ones have some centralization.
Well, from a user perspective, they do say that the easier the better. So is it going to be easier to use a decentralized blockchain versus a more centralized one? How do you?
Well, yeah. So there's two users to the blockchain. I mean, there's many, but let's just take the DApp itself. So the developers and maybe the company that wants to go on and create a decentralized. It could be anywhere from a multi-trillion-dollar bank to a new kind of way of doing anything. And why is that important? Yeah. So and I think it's showing itself in the current market is that if you're building a decentralized application, the reality is if you can do 10 or 15 transactions or 20 transactions per second, you're building something with a certain budget in mind, but in building it for that specifically that environment. You're not going to build something that has 10,000 transactions per second or whatever the number is, some large number per second, if you know that your environment is constraining you to a lower number. So more than likely you're probably building a proof of concept. It's early in the business, and so what ends up happening? The result is the killer app will not emerge. Highly unlikely it's going to emerge in that environment because the killer app wouldn't be designed in that environment. So now if you say to people, here's something that's fully decentralized, but it also scales, they will design things, and I believe the killer app will emerge. The reason I also don't think it'll emerge with a decentralized component, so that's the scalability why it's holding back a killer app. The decentralized, the centralized aspect of the other blockchains is a second reason why it's holding back killer dApps. And that's because if you're the head of a major institution, government agency, educational institution, take your pick, and you're told that there's a 0.00001 chance of collusion on here and your assets can be taken off by somebody else,
right?
You literally will have a fiduciary duty not to put your assets on there.
Yeah.
You're not thinking to yourself, oh, well, it's randomized or it's this or it's that. You're not like, the door is closed. You're not putting you're not going to ask one of the top banks in the world, just go ahead and put $3 trillion of assets. And yeah, there's a 1 millionth chance in the world that they will all be just taken off. That's just not going to happen. They're not going on there. There's other barriers to it, obviously, but that's like a key one. And what you'll see is, I think you're seeing this in some of them right now. There are some blockchains that you're seeing a lot of adoption, but what you're seeing is low value, like games and things like that going on there. So nobody's putting a tremendous amount of value. But I do want to be clear about something. I think this is not a zero-sum game, right? So I don't think that we're in place of all these other blockchains. Far from it. I'm an investor in several of these blockchains. I think they have amazing use cases. They're going to be incredibly valuable, but they're limited in what they can do. And so you either have to have a tremendous relationship or something, but more than likely it's lower value stuff that are going on there, or special use cases because it's specially optimized for this or for that. But when you're talking about the main or a main public chain, not the fact that it's just public or open source, but like the public chain where it's going to have mass adoption, that one needs to be fully decentralized. And right now, I believe we're the only technology that can claim that, but we've got a long way to go in order to get adoption.
Fascinating stuff. We wish you all the best with it, Stephen, and thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you to my guest, Stephen Nerayoff of Casper Labs there. Interesting to hear his thoughts on the market, as well as some of the technologies that he's helping create. Up next is Simon Harman from Loki. Loki is a fork of Monero, and they're trying to create a new onion routing network, as well as a new distributed anonymous messaging service. It's also well worth listening to some of the predictions that were made in this next interview about the market. Certainly very doom and gloom, and this was only 6 weeks ago. Just reminds you how quickly the market can change, and what a fascinating and dynamic space crypto really is. I hope you enjoy the next one, and stick around till the end for some closing thoughts.
Christo on Crypto.
How are you doing?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. It's been an interesting conference so far here in Hong Kong. What are your thoughts?
I'm already quite sleep deprived, and there was already a night of parties on the first, not even the first night of the conference, the night before, so Friday. So
Oh, wow.
I did all the running around various conferences and places last year, to the point where, I went to Singapore 3 times, and 2 of those times I didn't even sleep there. I just got on a plane from Melbourne, turned up in the morning, did a couple meetings, and then got back on a plane in the evening and came back. So I'm quite fed up with doing that sort of thing. So this year I'm trying to take things a little bit slower, and settle into the places I end up in.
Spend some time there, and not just be on red-eye flights all over the place.
Well, that's right, and actually get some decent sleep, and hopefully have better conversations as a result.
Well, it's something we all wish here in crypto. It's such a 24-hour market. It's very difficult.
Absolutely.
To never get any rest. So tell us a little bit about Loki.
Sure. So Loki is a privacy project. We're a fork of Monero.
Okay.
And we're essentially using the concept of masternodes to create a new onion routing network, and also a private messaging service. So the idea is that you have these nodes, they're staked in order to join the network, and once they join the network, they provide services, and the services they provide are internet access through onion routing that allows you to access the internet anonymously. So your IP address gets masked through this encryption protocol that's been around for a while now, called onion routing. We're not the first to do it, but we have written a brand new protocol with a number of features that aren't out there already. We use IP tunneling, so this means you can route all sorts of traffic, not just TCP, but TCP, UDP, and any other protocol that exists in the future or exists now, which is quite exciting. And then we're also using these service nodes to host a decentralized anonymous messaging service. So we use this onion routing to obfuscate the IP side of things. We have a distributed architecture for delivering and serving messages when the other user is offline. The easiest way I can describe it is it's a lot like Signal, except your phone number doesn't get associated with your account. Your IP address gets hidden, and it's totally decentralized. So if I send you a message using Loki Messenger, only you and I know that message has even been sent, let alone what was in it.
Wow.
So
how does that scale though?
It scales. It's actually, when you look at the statistics, not that hard to do. With the number of service nodes that we already have on the network, it's fairly easy to do that, especially considering that each of the users must also participate in it as well. So they're not entirely freeloading, because they have to do the proof of work and they have to build the parts and everything else. So we think it'll scale quite well to a certain extent, but there's sort of a self-regulating aspect to this as well. In order for the service nodes to continually earn rewards, they have to be able to keep up with the network and provide a minimum standard of service. Right. So if there is a huge demand to store a lot of messages and route a lot of traffic, then the minimum standard will be increased, and so those nodes will be sort of automatically economically incentivized to provide either a CDN type service or that sort of thing. But it'll scale pretty well for the first few million users.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I suppose one of the things about that is, of course, in order for that staking to happen, you need some reward system.
That's correct.
Which of course is based on the price of the token.
Yes.
So how does the bear market affect the development of Loki?
It doesn't really affect the development of Loki as much as it affects just the market and the current user base.
Okay.
These are products that I'm talking about right now are currently in the alpha stage. So we've done a lot of the development work over the last 9 months, but really it's still a ways off becoming the full ecosystem that we envisage. So there's still a while to go there. But the price of the token we believe will be derived from incentivization schemes on the network through a sort of, we're kind of discussing this in the community at the moment. So we want to integrate Loki the coin into the messenger and the LokiNet browser and all that stuff.
Yes.
Which is great to bring it forward as a private cryptocurrency, but also we're thinking about introducing a freemium aspect to it as well, so restricting certain functionality that would appeal to more power user type people, such as IPv6 exit ranges or things of that nature. And so they would do a special transaction on the blockchain, burn a certain amount of coins, which then evenly offsets the inflation that's created by service node rewards by burning those coins. So it's sort of a cyclical type of scheme.
And how is that burn rate set though?
It's not. That's the challenging thing about deciding how to price it.
Right.
So we also have a thing called the Loki name system. So instead of me, if I wanted to connect with you on Loki Messenger, we'd have to exchange pub keys somehow.
Okay.
But you can also pay to get an address on the Loki blockchain. So, for example, crypto.loki, you could own crypto.loki, but you'd have to pay for it, register it, and it's just like any other domain service. But then you can then use that contextually across the different Loki services. So whether you're using the messenger or the wallet or the service nodes, or you're hosting a snap on the LokiNet side of things, they can all reference to different parts of the network, but you still own that one domain. You can use it for all of those different services.
Okay. So I take it that Loki's obviously got the private messaging service. Is it expected to be used as a currency? What's your kind of ideal scenario?
Well, that's the debate that we're having in the community at the moment. Is that a realistic goal, or is it should we be focusing more on the freemium side of monetization?
Okay.
The way I see it personally is that we're now more like a traditional startup than we are a crypto startup, because we, unlike most crypto projects out there, actually have a consumer app that is being brought to market later this year. So we have the same adoption challenges that any other tech startup would be facing at this stage. And most of these other tech startups that you've seen out there, monetization is kind of the last thing on the list that they really think about, because if you can't get the millions of users that you want to make this app successful in the first place, then what's the point of worrying too much about monetization? And so that's kind of a line of thinking that I've been exploring in the last few weeks. But I'm really trying to think more carefully about the go-to-market strategy here rather than the nitty-gritty details, because I think a lot of blockchain and cryptocurrency projects in the last year get really focused on building these very elaborate, theoretically beautiful systems of these incentivization schemes.
But you think without monetization it's pointless?
Well, without a user base it's pointless.
Right.
And I think that the challenge that we're seeing now is that we're starting to see some of these products come to a close to final state. In a lot of cases they're just not getting used at all.
Right.
The user statistics on dApps in particular is quite poor. So I think more focus needs to come onto, okay, what are the actual consumer apps that we can push out there, and how do we bring them to market? Are they actually useful to people that are not involved in this industry?
So is your app out yet?
No, the app's not out yet.
Okay.
The desktop messenger and the desktop LokiNet implementations are about a month or two away.
Okay.
We haven't finalized a release date yet, but that's very exciting. But obviously, I think the consumer go-to-market strategy doesn't really come into play until it's ready on mobile, and it's had a couple months to be optimized and improved. That's probably happening later this year.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So something to look forward to, definitely.
Definitely. I mean, it's a long road ahead. We've got quite a complicated product when you think about it.
Yeah.
We're designing a brand new onion routing network from scratch. Yeah, our code base is based on Monero.
It's based on Monero. But what's to stop Fluffy Pony deciding
Okay, just picture this for 2 seconds.
Okay.
Fluffy Pony turns around one day and he says, "All right, guys, we're going to put masternodes on Monero."
Right.
Can you see a future in which that happens?
Of course not.
Yeah, I think what we're doing is very far out of scope of what Monero is focusing on. I don't see any future in which... I mean, that's always the threat there, right? Like, someone might fork Loki with more money and a bigger team and try and overtake what we're doing, but that's the case with literally every
crypto
other
in general,
or tech startup in general. Like, a lot of tech startups are just
swallowed in,
or copies of other projects trying to do similar things with a slight twist and all that. Like the plethora of dating apps out there that are trying to be the next Tinder or the next Bumble or whatever. As an example, there's just so many of them, and so it's really...
Which one works best in your opinion?
What, Tinder or Bumble?
Yeah.
I don't know. I've had a mixed experience on both. I don't think anyone's really figured it out yet.
That's a very diplomatic answer. I think they work differently in different markets.
Well, I can't say I've had a lot of experience with experimenting in different markets, to be honest. But I'm sure you're not wrong.
I wouldn't know. So I suppose one of the next things that we should talk about is this bear market, and what are your thoughts? Where are we in the life cycle of this bear market?
I think we've probably bottomed out, but we're going to be sitting on the bottom for probably the next year. Really? I keep saying this to people. I really think the next year is going to suck for everyone, including ourselves.
Right.
It takes a long time for people to feel not cut about such a huge crash, and everyone's been saying ETF.
So you don't think you'll be approved?
Well, they were saying the same thing about the Bitcoin futures thing with the Chicago stock exchange, or not stock exchange, derivatives exchange.
Mercantile exchange.
Yeah, and it just never, both of them, they came out on CME and CBOE, and it's a big nothing. And I think ETFs will be the same. Just because it exists, it doesn't mean that we will see institutional money coming in. I think crypto is very much a retail investment phenomenon. And I think once we evolve past this stage of being a speculative asset, it will be a consumer application, not an enterprise or a business application in general, I think.
But okay, I mean, I get that point of view, but I still think from a currency point of view, Bitcoin has a draw for institutional investors.
Absolutely.
I suppose that we should make we should be clear about the difference between currencies and cryptos, I suppose, because the technology might not be something that they're willing to get in because of the nature. It's like a VC is more suited to that than, say, a traditional finance company or a bank, for that matter. But I think they would still want exposure to Bitcoin.
I hope you're right.
Well, let's see. There's only one way to find out. I mean, I know the deadline for the SEC is coming up in a couple of months. So
right, okay.
But the government shutdown might happen again, or who knows? Trump might be not in office. It's all up in the air a little bit.
I really haven't been paying attention to these, particularly the American, various filings and court cases and things. It's all just a big nothing. I mean, back in the last sort of run up in 2017, it was all about what was China going to do. Were they going to ban Bitcoin? And they did 6 times or something horrendous, and everything shook out the way it was going to shake out anyway. And it still all happened. I don't think this regulatory news is anything
as big as it seems.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I
That's...
definitely think it's a very I'm going to use the word peer-to-peer here, as in I think Bitcoin goes through these cycles of interest and engagement because people talk about it a lot, and interest is generated. It's not a top-down thing. It's definitely a bottom-up, and that's why I think we've seen the same retail investment hype cycles happen over and over again at this point. It's because you go through these periods of, have you heard about this? No, I haven't. You learn a little bit more, you keep hearing about it, and you just, it's very clear what happens, and then everyone hears about it and gets onto it when it's going off. And then all of a sudden, the ass falls out of the market, and everyone loses interest almost immediately because their hopes and dreams are now crushed, and then they go back to not really caring about Bitcoin for 2 years, and then every time they hear it, they just they feel very emotionally hurt by it because
you would if you bought at 20k.
Well, exactly, and I know several people in my personal circles that did, even though I told them.
Did you tell them to buy it?
I just told, look, man, this is just getting crazy now. Like do what you want, but I don't know.
Right.
And
right. They're kicking themselves now, eh?
They are kicking themselves.
Right, well, Simon from Loki, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, and we wish you the best for the future with Loki, and do come back and tell us when you're live.
I will. Thanks for having me.
Awesome, thank you so much. Cheers. Well, there you have it. That was Simon Harman from Loki. I tell you, predicting this market is not for the faint of hearted. It's completely unpredictable, and look at what 6 weeks makes. Wow, what a difference. Thank you again to my guests this week, who were Stephen Nerayoff from Casper Labs and Simon Harman, who just heard from Loki. Thank you again to the sponsors BitXme Exchange and Reset and Retreat. Some very exciting stuff coming out of those two businesses. And of course, thank you to my listeners who we do this for and make all of these great interviews possible. If you have 2 minutes, don't hesitate to subscribe to us on our new YouTube channel. Subscribe to us on the iTunes or podcasting app of your choice. And leave us a review if you're enjoying the content. It makes it all the worthwhile, and we really appreciate all of your support. Thank you again for everything, and we'll see you on the next one. This has been an episode of Christo on Crypto. Take care.